Objective 3. Use a number line to describe numbers. So example, graph the numbers on the number line. It says the counting numbers between -3 and 5. Okay, so when we look at the counting numbers between -3 and 5. Okay, so the counting numbers are the numbers that are natural numbers. Now remember that the counting numbers are natural numbers. And the natural numbers start at 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, right? So if we take a look at the numbers between -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, okay? So again, they're only asking for the counting numbers. So we have to exclude -3, -2, -1, and 0 because they're not natural numbers. And then we have to include 1, 2, 3, and 4, but we cannot include 5 because it does not say inclusive. Next, we're going to take a look at the integers. So now we want to be able to include integers that are between -7 and 2. So remember what we call integers. So integers can go from -7, -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and so on. Okay, so in this particular example, we know that we have -7, -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, and then 2. So when it says inclusive, that tells us that we can include the -7 and also the 2 because the inclusive tells us that we need to include those numbers. In part C, it says the positive integers between -2 and 6. So what are the positive integers in between -2 and 6? So let's take a look at that. So if we take a look at the positive numbers between -2 and 6. So what are all the positive numbers? Well, the positive numbers start at 1, 2, 3, 4, and they keep going, right? So if we take a look at these numbers, we have -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. So again, we're looking at positive integers, and it doesn't say inclusive, so we cannot include the value of -2. We cannot include -1. We cannot include 0 because none of those three numbers are not considered positive numbers. And then the number that we can include is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But 6, it's not inclusive, so we have to disclude 6. So the numbers that we're going to graph on that number line is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, if we wanted to write this as inclusive, then we would be able to include the 6 if it said inclusive. So again, this graph on the left is this scenario. Now, if it said inclusive, then we would knock off the -2 and then include the value of 6. Okay, next it says, give 3 examples of the following types of numbers. Part A, negative integers less than 2. Well, -1, -2, and -3 are numbers that are less than 2. Part B, rational numbers that are not integers. Well, 2/3 is not an integer, 1/3 is not an integer, and 4/5 are not an integer, but they are rational numbers. They can be written as fractions. And then rational numbers between 0 and 1. Well, what are numbers in between 0 and 1? Well, these are proper fractions where the numerator is smaller than the denominator. We know that 1/3 is in between 0 and 1, 1/2 is in between 0 and 1, and 1/4 is in between 0 and 1.